production seminar number one. This is a series we're going to do once a month, where we're going to just share production tricks with each other. And there's no real direction here other than like show each other stuff that we do to make music, which is, what we do for a living. So I thought I would just start really simple by just showing you guys and walking you through my template. So this is when I open up Logic. This is my this is the template that I built, and we'll go through like the ins and outs of it, and then I'll just like play some of the stuff I have in it. So you can see it's actually pretty big. It opens up to this piano track, so that I can sketch on the piano, just do normal piano stuff. I usually, for these Fox things, for the teases and these things that are kind of orchestral, I have started to sketch on the piano. I used to just like get right into it, and now I found it easier to like map them out on piano and then orchestrate them. Sometimes I also, this is probably a good trick for you, Nolan. Like I will just put markers with chord changes, and that like really helps me orchestrate faster. It's like it's a pain in the ass to do, but then it just really helps me, like if I just helps me know if I need to go to a B or a B flat. That's a thing I started doing during the Super Bowl spot, and it like made that whole thing go a lot faster. So the upfront work is definitely worth it on that. So I'll just walk you through the whole thing. So the way you make orchestral stuff sound good is to do this work ahead of time. That's really the bottom line, and that's why John and I are like able to crank out like trailer sounding shit really fast. It's not because we have great ideas or are brilliant people. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't, but it's because we have a template that sounds really good, and it's really worth. This took me, I don't know, a couple days to set up and get it really working the way that I like it, and then, like I said with the chord symbols, like the upfront work is really worth it. So basically, like the meat of it is. This section is the mixing section. I'm pointing like you can see me. So this is the mixing section. So this is like all of my stems broken out by food group, and all the audio ultimately goes here to my Hearns track. Sorry, see, this is one downside of a template is if you screw up one thing.
Hearns.
Yes, that it propagates forever. So like I've known that was an issue. It has not been worth me fixing it. But yeah, so I've got all these buses, right? So so you can see horns are bus one, and then it goes all the way down to here. These are just sort of these aux buses are just like in case I need another bus, and you can see that I have pretty much every food group I would want here. And then bus 64 I've reserved for the master, and the reason for that, I think that's a habit, and I think that the reason I did that is because like there used to only be 64 channels, and so you would use 64 is like your end channel. Now there's like an arbitrary number of channels, 100 and something. So anyway, so I always use bus 64 as the master. So my routing is everything sort of terminates here. So if I'm playing, if I'm trying to mix something and I unenable this, all my strings will go away. And if they don't go away, then I'll know that something is routed weird, and then I have to go back and fix it, right? So that's super helpful. This also, in theory, could print stems for me, but I never use that functionality. I don't know why I never use that functionality. I could do it. It's because I'm usually not in that much of a hurry. But if I were doing TV, this would be a way you could print audio stems here and then just export them. The other part of it that's interesting is the reverb. So I have everything as a send. So we'll go up in a little bit and just talk about that. But so I have the reverbs here are all it's coming in at bus 33. So all of the strings have a send to bus 33, and then the output is bus 1. So the reverb sends out to this track, and then the audio from this track goes to the main mix stem here, right? So both the dry sound and the wet sound are going in, and I control the balance with the send. And then to set that up for anyone who doesn't know, basically you pick the reverb that you like, you put the mix at 100% because you're only sending a certain amount of audio to it. So this is the verb that I use at this concert hall. I go back and forth. Sometimes I use the Lexicon EMT 250. Sometimes I use the Todd AO reverb. But it's like basically template specific because you'd have to set it up every time. The other thing that this template allows me to do is if I select everything but the master and then go to the mix here, I can literally bring the whole mix down like 5 dB. Oh, that was up 5 dB. But I can bring the whole mix down like, 5 dB and then bring up individual elements of it. So that helps me do like a really quick, dirty mix. Um, and then I can see when I've got a bunch of tracks, like, if it's peaking, I can bring everything down to the peak level and then bring up the things that I want. So that's how I get like that's how and then also this is where I would put the master, like ozone or something is on this track. So this is how I get like this is how I'm able to get like a quick, really good sounding mix that is great for a demo and good to present to a client, is by routing everything this way. So here we'll talk about the I'll just like use it a little bit because there's other stuff in here, but that's sort of the heart of it. And I also like having it kind of slim like this, where everything's in groups and I can just look at it. Like, this isn't overwhelming for me. Before Logic had this functionality, you used to have all these things open, and you can see it's just a lot to look at if you have to have all of these things open. And like, I don't use woodwinds on everything, so sometimes I just don't need to use it. So it's nice that it's just in a closed track up here. And what I have in here right now loaded, I'll just show you my like standard stuff. So I have this emotional piano, and that's you guys all probably have this patch. If you don't, you should get it. This is like the Tone Hammer emotional piano. I like this one because it's basically, it sounds great, and it also, like, it doesn't. I like Piano in Blue probably more, but Piano in Blue has this weird problem with cumulative tape hiss. So Piano in Blue is sampled on tape. So if you play like a 7-note chord, you're getting 7x the tape hiss, even though probably the piano itself sounds better. So I like this. I like this emotional piano for basically everything. And then these are just kind of weird, like, sounds, like piano type sounds. I think this is all Tone Hammer. Like, these are all just like, I don't know. They're just like, I just kind of like them, and they're good, like, also placeholders. Like, I'm like, I know I need a weird sound here. One of these is probably pretty close, and then I can go back and figure it out. In my bass area, this is like let's see. So all of these are, this is Trillion, and like, right. So this is the Trillion upright with character, which I also would like highly recommend buying and updating regularly, which I clearly haven't done. But it's the like the, I don't know, Trillion is like kind of expensive. It's worth it just for this bass, and it has like a million other basses. And then this is the other one that I keep loaded all the time. This is like a Moog E. And again, this is a good, like, if I'm just sketching, I need a bass thing here. Like, I'll put that in there. It'll give me the gesture that I want, and then I can go like find a specific sound that I want later, if that makes sense. So like these two basses pretty much will do it for any situation. Will kind of allow me to sketch. Then the strings are sort of the meat of my template. I write a lot of stuff with strings. You can see the way I have this set up. So this is all the LA scoring strings, last strings. These are the ones that I use the most for sure. There's some other ones, but like, these are sort of the heart of my string sound. And we'll start at the bottom. You can see that they're all in score order. So bass is at the bottom, first violin's at the top. And the way that I have this set up is these are multis in Logic, and I have there's 16 tracks per 16 tracks per well, whatever instance, and I have them all set up in the reason to have them set up in this order. The order doesn't really matter, but like, the reason to have them set up in this way is that it makes it a lot easier when I hand stuff off to orchestration, because then I think Eugene, you can confirm if this is in fact the case, but I think it makes it easier when I hand it off to orchestration, because the MIDI files are already named with the articulation that I want. So like, all my sus strings are a different MIDI file than all my short strings. So that makes it a little bit easier for an orchestrator to see it. And you can see the way that I've set this up, and this is consistent through the whole template, is, V1, here, let me make this bigger so we can actually see the full names. Oh, thanks, Logic. So it won't actually let me do that no matter what I do. Great. So V1 sus, V1 trems, V1 trills, V1 harms, marcato, staccato, spiccato, pizzicato, and then these are these aleatoric ones. And then you can see violins too are set up in the exact same order: sus, trems, trills, harmonics, marcato, staccato, spiccato, pizzicato, and these two aleatoric ones. And the reason for that is that if I have a whole string part that I've arranged this way, I can copy it down to another instrument and then just change the octave, or not change the octave, and then it'll play. So I don't have to reprogram it every single time. So if I have like a MIDI file here, and then a MIDI file here, and then some short stuff here, I can copy that down to the second violins, and it'll maintain the same articulations. And same thing with the violas and the celli and the basses. And the reason I put the aleatoric stuff at the bottom is it's kind of different. That stuff is different in this library on every track. So like I wouldn't probably copy and paste that. But yeah, there's some really good sounds here. So that's the meat of that. And then what is this? So this is just some string effects that I use sometimes. Which one is this? This is
vertical zoom will give you the full track names. A bit more vertical.
Vertical zoom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
That's what I'm looking for.
That's right.
This is why we have, right. So then these are all just different. So this is these are all just different libraries, and like we can do another session where I talk about like which libraries I use for which situations. But it's not that. It's actually not that organized. It's very more like seat of the pants. Like, oh, this sounds good right here. And the other thing that I use all the time, strings wise, is these, which I think you guys all have. And these are the Joshua Bell solo, the Fisher viola, and the Blackest cello. So I basically use these for my solos. And like, I think the Joshua Bell solo, when like programmed well, is about as good as you can get, really. Like, I mean, like the next step is you get a real violinist. Like it's a really nice sound. We've we have released some things that have that as a violin solo, and it sounds great. The Super Bowl, for example, this is the violin solo. One of the interesting things about this, and this is an Eddie trick, but I'll show you guys this little trick that I like to do is, so if you set the articulation to spiccato and then go over to this MIDI effects and turn on the arpeggiator. That's just a really cool effect. You can do it in any kind of like configuration with any amount of notes. Yeah, so I do that all the time. I also like doing that with pitches. It's like more of an effecty thing, but it's So yeah, that like really gives me some vibe. I use that quite a lot. You can also do here. I'll do a little like sort of example. So if you do something like this, like. So get that in there, size it, and then like there's just like any number of like cool things you can do to make this interesting, right? Yeah, this is really more like Vinny's department, but like. Yeah, you can go crazy with this. So this might be like the kind of thing I would do So this is like the kind of thing I would do to like get a vibe for a track. Is like find a sound like this that I liked, and then like use that as the as sort of the like solo instrument for the track. Go ahead.
Real quick, where was that arpeggiator button for the Joshua Bell?
Oh yeah, so the arpeggiator. So Logic has here. I'll kill this. So there's a MIDI effect on every MIDI track. There's a MIDI effects thing, and you've got an arpeggiator, chord trigger, modifier, modulator, all these different things. They're all very cool. You know, we could do a whole hour on each one of them, but the arpeggiator is like that is like the easy low hanging fruit that is just available, right? So here, one other thing I'll show you guys is so I just did the I just sort of raised and lowered the send here, and I didn't explain this, but the reason to have the reverb on sends is that it mimics an analog board, and it also puts the reverb specifically in each instrument and in each stem. And the reason that that's important is that like a lot of samples have reverb on them already, and so you want to be able to control the reverbs between like your horns and your strings. Like if you had them all, if they were all the same, you'd want them to all go to one reverb so that they sound like they're in the same room. But the way to make them sound like they're in the same room is to give them more or less reverb depending on which sample it is. And that's the reason to put them on stems. I can do one of these 2 or 3 minute teases that we are 1 to 3 minute teases in about 3 hours. Because when you play it in, it already sounds pretty good. And you know, there's a couple other tips and tricks, but like the setting up the template is really the first part of making your orchestral sound work. And you know, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. One of the things but like some of the tricks I would definitely steal from me are like here. I'll just show you this last thing before we move on. Is like, so you can see how I have all the strings color coded here, right? So when you highlight this all, you can see all the orchestration decisions that you've made right here. So like, sorry, so and you can play these. So like, you know, maybe having this low G in the violas against the same G in the cello right here is not the best decision, right? So maybe I want to pop this up here. Pop that up an octave. So yeah, maybe that's better. See, like the seconds are coming down to this low G also. Maybe you want that, maybe you don't. But it's a really good way to just look at your orchestration all in one spot. And you can pick, you know, any piece of it you want to work on, and you can see with the color coding, just like where all the voices land, which is I find to be really helpful, and really helpful to filling out the sonic space. So, all right, that's my presentation. So, thanks very much.